Welcome to the Inner West Library Australian Music Month Speaker Series. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land, the Gadigal and Wongal people of the Eora Nation, and pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. Georgia Wilkinson-Derums plays bass and sings in the band Bodytype. Bodytype has released two EPs, and their debut album, Everything is Dangerous But Nothing Surprising, was released earlier this year on Poison City Records. She also plays in the band G2G, releasing their first EP in 2020. Welcome, Georgia.
Hello.
As a performing musician, what were your favourite venues to play in the Inner West and as a punter?
Um, I have quite a few. The factory would definitely be up there. I love going to the factory. I saw Wise Blood play 3 days before lockdown in 2020. Um, and I also really enjoy the Marrickville Bowler as both, probably more as a punter. It's probably one of my favorite venues. Nag Nag is always fantastic, and that generally happens in January.
So you moved to Sydney from Perth in the 2010s. Could you describe what the local scene was like when you moved?
I didn't really start playing music until 2015. I did move over to Sydney in 2011 from Perth to go to NIDA to complete an acting degree. But my induction to the scene was quite like it was a fairly lonely one, I guess. I now can see like mates of mine that play in bands and who would have been playing throughout the early 2000s into the 2010s would have had such a good time because they just would have had so many opportunities to kind of hone what they do. But I guess like when I was playing in the 2015, 2016 era, it was just really supportive. I guess everyone kind of just wanted to make music all the time.
And everyone knew each other and was supportive.
Yeah, especially the scene that we grew up in and amongst. It was fairly DIY, so we would play at other people's parties and strange little quirky venues.
Such
It felt
as?
really good. God, I can't even remember now. Um, I guess mainly kind of warehousey things and houses and so on. But I also did live in King's Cross. So, I remember thinking, oh my God, this city is so wild because it was a long way from the suburbia that I'd grown up amongst.
So Bodytype started in 2016, roughly halfway through Sydney's Lockout Laws. How did that affect playing and getting your music out there? Like live music venues such as the Sandringham closed during this period. So we were just talking about warehouse gigs. Was that a reaction to the Lockout Laws, you think?
Yeah, we do get asked this a fair bit, and I think in short, no, it didn't really affect us. I think, naturally when things close down and makes way for more interesting spaces to open it up and so on. But as I said, we grew up in a fairly kind of ad hoc scene anyway, so we would play house parties and um I mean realistically we probably started up and the lockout laws happened anyway. I remember witnessing it more as just a citizen, walking through the streets, being like, "Whoa, everything just feels slightly more dead." I mean, you would have noticed it as well.
Oh, definitely.
But then again, like even post lockout laws, it feels like after COVID, everyone's just so wanting to go to live venues anyway. So I played a show at Oath a couple of maybe last month, a hardcore gig there that started at 12 a.m. or 1 a.m. So something's kind of the scales have tipped slightly.
hmm I think for me it was more what I've noticed from the Lockout Laws is that it's kind of moved out of the CBD.
Yeah, that's true. Into Newtown and so on, into the inner
Mm.
west.
Yeah, definitely. Like there's so many venues in like Marrickville, for example, now.
Yeah, which is really cool.
Well, what was one of your most memorable gigs? Why? What happened at it?
Like I said before, I really love Nag Nag. Recently, G2G supported Animal and the Sniffers
hmm
at at the Enmore and down in Wollongong at Wollongong Uni, and that was pretty massive. I was thinking about this. All the international shows were huge. We played the Moth Club in London with a band called Dry Cleaning. Have you heard of Dry Cleaning?
hmm
Yeah, well, they I think that was their first show. They supported us in 2019, and now they're massive. I'm going to go see them in a few months. But I think it's always quite, it's always a good time when you like the band you're supporting or the
hmm
bands you're playing with. That's how you really enjoy the show, really.
What about as a punter?
Well, to be honest, I'd have to say that watching Animal and Sniffers a couple of months ago was pretty huge. She's got so much energy.
They do put on a show.
Yeah, they really do. You don't see that often enough.
Mm.
Patti Smith, that's probably I like when I get to see the greats.
So who are your favorite inner west bands from now and earlier bands that may or may not be with us now?
So I love Greta now. I play in a band with Greta. Um, I loved, Nasho, LA Suffocated, Orion, Low Life. My very probably most favorite band, my inner west band, is Display Homes, but they recently lost their drummer Bobby, which is incredibly sad. I always said that Bobby was kind of like the Bon Scott of the inner west, but um, like reflecting on this, I kind of got out a bit of pen and paper and started writing down all the inner west bands that I love. It's just endless, and it's all really good and interesting music.
Growing up in Perth, were there any Sydney bands that you were just like, wow? Or did you were you still focus more on like a local Perth scene when you were there?
That's a good question. I don't think. I mean, I would have known Sydney bands because I always loved music. But I think with the advent of MySpace and Facebook, I was kind of so consumed by Kings of like overseas stuff. It's only been more into my adult years that I really try and foster like go to local music and so on because I understand how much it means.
hmm I guess that's the difference between having a national broadcaster like Triple J versus local radio like FBI and 2SER.
Yeah, that's right, and how important they are. RTR, yeah, in
hmm
WA.
Right. So when bands made it quote unquote big and left Sydney to tour, like your mates' bands or bands that you were familiar with, what was the vibe in the local scene after that? Was it still about seeing mates play, or did it become something else? Was it weird for you? Because I know Body Type have toured internationally, coming back from tours and like, did you feel like the scene had passed you by? Did you feel like were you welcomed back with open arms, or was it like, oh, a bit of resentment maybe for your success?
I, God, I feel like none of our mates have made it big. um, the closest we got to that was booking an international record deal in 2019, and that went very south very quickly. Um,
Because of COVID?
I just because of the relationship. But
Oh,
we'll get to that in another question.
sure.
I think I think the musicianship that I'm most attracted to never really has much commercial success, and I'm trying very hard to change my attitude towards this because I'm so sick of seeing the artists get royally screwed by the industry. But it's also a product of our times. You have Spotify and all the streaming platforms that are so industry focused, the artist kind of gets left behind financially. So I don't. I'm trying to think of any of my mates who have really, I mean, really made it super massive in the inner west. I mean, yeah, I don't think there's any tall poppy syndrome, that's for sure. But I think people are really supportive of people going overseas and giving it a go.
I guess it's being realistic about your goals, right? Like from a certain point of view, leaving Australia to play your music to people in another country is could be considered big.
Yeah, that's true. No, it definitely is. It's the next step, I guess. And I guess in this climate, it's kind of imperative because that's how you do it. You got to tour.
Is that a
But I
grass
think,
is
yeah, I
greener
think
thing?
everyone was supportive. Going overseas.
Yeah.
Well, it's
Like, did
just,
you go over there and then you realized, hey, like, there's all these great bands back at home?
yeah, I definitely did that. And I went over to America and watched all these bands that were doing quite well and getting a lot of traction and thinking this is rubbish. Thinking like, God, if only they could go into the Marrickville Bolo,
They'd
they'd
get,
be pleasantly surprised.
yeah, they'd be rubbished.
Like, I wonder if big labels have, yeah, how they choose acts to kind of get behind because some
Mm.
of it makes no sense to me. But then again, I think that's just a personal taste thing.
Yeah, well, you mentioned that previously, right? That your tastes tend to be a bit obscure.
Skew with,
Yeah.
yeah.
You're currently partnered with Poison City, which is a Melbourne-based label. How does the Sydney scene or slash inner west scene compare to Melbourne?
It's most notable to me when we go and play shows. You know, the quality of the audience, if that makes sense. So, I mean, first and foremost, Poison City are an incredible label. They've been really, really fantastic for us. But I do know that whenever I play shows in Melbourne, the audience is less inclined to dance and get rowdy, whereas in Sydney, everyone kind of gets more involved in the show.
Yeah,
I
right.
think I mean both scenes to me seem quite supportive. Maybe Melbourne is more discerning with with like lineups and so on.
Okay.
But at this point in time, because people move between cities so often, it just feels like the same bag really.
Well, pre-COVID, with the cost of flights, I imagine that would have been a lot easier to do than now.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Mm. That leads on to my next question. Like, is a local scene even like a thing anymore? With like bands like Bandcamp and SoundCloud and like other social media, it seems that you could foster an online following, release music all by yourself without having a physical connection in person, saying playing down at Marrickville Bolo. So does that mean that the scene becomes less geographically based for you?
Yeah, this is a really good question. I actually feel like it's swung the other way again. You know, when maybe in the 2000s, MySpace and so on, I think at that point in time, it was really trendy to just use online musical modes of communication or whatnot. But these days, what I can see from all my mates who play in different cities around Australia, the local scene is so important. Like, because it actually kind of has a huge impact on the kind of music that you're creating. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Body Type wouldn't play the songs that we do if we didn't grow up around certain bands. You know, I wouldn't want to be making the music that I do unless I'd played with these different artists and so on. So it's just, I don't think it can be underestimated, and I think people do recognize that for sure.
It's very interesting.
Mm.
There's this saying about monks living together. They're like rocks in a bag where the rocks rub against each other and they smooth out all of the unwanted parts. So they're all collaborating together to make each other what they actually are.
Yeah, that's a great analogy for it.
Hmm.
We're all just a big rock. We're all just a rock in a bag.
There's how have your experiences as a female musician affected your work in art? Like, have you experienced a difference in genders of how you're perceived, or how others are perceived, or how you perceive others?
This is a question that I also, we do also get asked frequently, and I never feel like I articulate myself properly when I answer it.
Well, it's a
Um,
broad subject, right? It's not you
it's
don't.
and it's
There's not a snappy
difficult.
one answer, one word answer for it, right?
No, it's not. You need to write a paper on it. You need to write a PhD on it.
Hmm.
I mean, I don't want to say no because yes, it does affect my work and the work that I want to make as well. It affects my work because I'm conscious of the fact that I can't lift an AC 30 amp, and the fact that my bandmates won't be able to rehearse for that long because she needs to go and express her milk. And I've had experience as a woman where I felt uncomfortable and where I'm aware I'm being looked at in a particular way, or I've been groped or moved without my consent. But they're larger systemic issues
Hmm.
that I see everywhere. But then also just technically, the machinery that I'm holding isn't built for my body. So the guitar, so it hurts my boobs and all that kind of stuff. So I am aware inherently that it's different for women to
Okay.
make music, and it's a different culture. And but that's not to say, you know. But then you go, oh, that makes you kick back harder. So I wouldn't be able to make the music that I do or the music that I want to make unless those kind of hurdles have been put in place.
The
Like,
good with the bad.
yeah, I mean, Body Type have constantly been told that we can't really play our instruments, which is verifiably crap because all, the other three, at least, I mean, I don't know about me, I'm a bit shit, but the other three are pretty incredible instrumentalists. And, kind of, we got dropped by a label because he thought we couldn't play our instruments.
Then why were they interested in the
Um,
first place?
Well, that's because we were women, because
Oh,
he was just
right.
clicking the,
As a selling
probably
point.
ticking the gender diversity box. But I also quite deliberately choose to make music with women because I prefer it. It feels familiar. I mean, all the bands that I play in are with women.
Hmm.
It feels quite safe, but I guess it feels quite dangerous as well. And aesthetically, I like it. It's a bit messy. It's scrappy. I mean, that's me. I like the female voice. I like women hitting a kick drum. So it's a big question, and I think I'm still considering how it actually plays out in my life. But I don't want to say no because, to be honest, for a long time we would say no. Of course it's not different. Just whereas I don't really believe that anymore.
Like, how do you juxtapose your experiences between that and you mentioned before having a really welcoming, collaborative scene.
Yeah, the scene is very welcoming. That's true. But within that you have many players. So you have technicians, you have sound people, you have industry bigwigs. So the artists might be welcoming,
Hmm.
but they're not the only rock in the bag, if you will.
Yep.
So I think we still have quite a way to go.
Hmm. Well, you seem to be kicking against it pretty well.
Yeah, I mean we try. I mean I've got big boots for that.
That was my last question, Georgia. Thanks for your time.
Thank you so much for having me on the podcast. I love the
Cheers.
inner west.
Lovely. Thank you for listening, and please look out for upcoming digital content through the Inner West Library's What's On social media channels.